Get out of the car now. Officer Ryan barked, his hand already on his holster. The sound of his voice cracked through the humid air like thunder, echoing across the empty street. Darnell, taken off guard, slowly stepped out of his car. His eyes locked with the officer's, a quiet defiance in them. He wasn't sure why he was being stopped, but he knew this wasn't just a simple traffic stop. The officer's gaze was cold, his body language tense, as if expecting trouble. Darnell could feel the weight of judgment in the air. He had been stopped before, but this time, something was different. Ryan was about to make a mistake, and he could feel it coming. His patience was the only thing keeping him steady. As Darnell stood there, the humid air sticking to his skin, he couldn't help but feel the familiar sting of being looked down upon. Officer Ryan, with his pressed uniform and perfect posture, exuded the kind of authority that made people like Darnell feel small. It was always the same. When you were from a neighborhood like his, the way people looked at you never changed. They saw a man who didn't belong, someone who was just another figure in a sea of forgotten faces. Darnell wasn't intimidated, but the weight of that judgment, the assumption that he had no place here, was a constant reminder of how the world saw him. He had worked hard to be invisible, to blend into the background, and yet, no matter how hard he tried, people like Officer Ryan always saw something different. They never gave him a chance to show who he really was, not that it mattered. He had learned long ago that in this world, being a man with his background meant being overlooked, ignored, and judged before you even had the chance to speak. But today, something inside him refused to stay silent. "What's your name, boy?" Officer Ryan's voice cut through the thick air, sharp and laced with condescension. Darnell's eyes narrowed, his pulse quickening, but he said nothing. The officer's hand hovered over the radio, his posture rigid. A few nearby pedestrians had stopped, sensing the tension. "What?" No words now. Ryan pressed, his voice rising, a smirk playing on his lips as he leaned in. The people watching began to murmur, their eyes flicking back and forth between the officer and Darnell. They weren't seeing a man, just a stereotype. A few whispered comments reached Darnell's ears. "Shouldn't be here," one said. "Just another one trying to act tough," another murmured. The words stung, but Darnell held his ground, refusing to let their judgment get to him. Ryan, enjoying the moment, made a show of checking his watch, as if Darnell were nothing more than an inconvenience to him. The crowd around them grew, their eyes following the officer's every move, feeding off the humiliation that was being painted across Darnell's face. The officer's casual dismissal was loud, clear, and the worst kind of disrespect. He saw Darnell as less than, as invisible. The pressure was building, thick and suffocating, as Officer Ryan's gaze sharpened, the slight smirk fading into something darker. "You better start talking, or I'll make this harder for you," he threatened, his voice low and menacing. The crowd around them grew, their murmurs louder now, feeding off the tension. Darnell's heart raced, but his mind stayed sharp. He could feel the eyes on him, the weight of their expectations. He had been here before, cornered by the weight of assumptions, but never like this. The officer was digging into him now, his questions more pointed, more accusatory. "What's your business here? You think you're above the law?" Ryan's words came faster, his frustration clear, each one a jab aimed to make Darnell feel smaller, less than. Darnell's fists clenched at his sides, but he didn't answer, knowing any wrong move would only escalate this further. The officer leaned in, his voice raising again. "You think you can just stand there and stare at me, huh?" He stepped closer, his presence almost suffocating. Darnell's throat tightened. The crowd was watching intently, the tension in the air now so thick it was almost tangible. His patience was being tested. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to fight back, to say something, but Darnell held his ground. He would not give in to this. Not today. Officer Ryan stepped even closer, his face now inches from Darnell's, his breath hot and quick. The crowd was dead silent, waiting for the next move. "You think I'm playing with you?" Ryan's voice was sharp, barely contained. Darnell stood frozen, the tension so thick that it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Ryan's hand twitched toward his belt, but Darnell's gaze never wavered. And that's when he hesitated. For just a split second, Ryan's eyes softened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he paused. Darnell saw it, the brief moment of uncertainty, an unexpected shift. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the whole situation feel like it was about to break. The silent question hanging in the air. Are you sure you want to do that? The hesitation hung in the air, heavy and almost tangible, before Ryan quickly straightened up, pulling his hand back from his belt. The shift in his posture was almost imperceptible, but Darnell caught it. There was something in Ryan's eyes now, a flicker of realization, an almost imperceptible hint that he might have misjudged the situation entirely. Darnell didn't move, didn't break eye contact. In that moment, the crowd seemed to hold its breath, sensing that something was about to change. The officer's expression shifted, a flash of doubt clouding his features. Darnell's silence felt like a statement in itself, a calm in the face of the storm. He could feel it. This wasn't just a random stop. This was something deeper, something Ryan hadn't even begun to understand. Darnell wasn't just any man on the street. He wasn't some random person to be pushed around. He'd been here before, and he wasn't about to let Ryan's assumptions get the best of him. As Ryan's eyes flickered to the crowd, Darnell could see it. Ryan was starting to realize the mistake he was making. A slight frown pulled at the officer's lips, his hands twitching ever so slightly. Darnell knew something had changed. The tables were beginning to turn. The silence broke when Darnell slowly reached into his jacket pocket, his eyes never leaving Ryan's. The crowd watched, breathlessly waiting. With a deliberate motion, Darnell pulled out a badge, shiny, official, and unmistakable. He held it up, the light catching it just enough to reveal the full insignia, FBI. Ryan's eyes widened, his body stiffening as his expression shifted from frustration to shock. His hand dropped away from his holster, his posture now uncertain, almost embarrassed. You're, Ryan stammered, his voice trailing off. Darnell stood tall, his calm demeanor now a stark contrast to the chaos of the moment. I'm not just some guy you can push around, he said, his voice steady but firm. You made a mistake today. I suggest you be more careful next time. The crowd that had gathered, sensing the shift in power, fell into a stunned silence. Ryan took a step back, his face flushed, unable to process what had just happened. The tension was gone, replaced by the heavy weight of realization. The man he had just humiliated wasn't who he thought he was. And that mistake, he realized, would haunt him long after Darnell walked away. Ryan stood there, stunned, as Darnell turned to leave, the badge still gleaming in his hand. The crowd dispersed, whispering among themselves, their eyes lingering on the officer, now left to face the consequences of his actions. The embarrassment was evident on Ryan's face, his authority shattered in a single moment. Darnell's steps grew quieter as he walked away, his back straight, leaving the officer behind, knowing that karma had already set things right. The mistake had been made, and Ryan would now carry the weight of it long after this encounter was over. In the end, it wasn't about power. It was about respect, and today, Darnell had earned it.